John 13, starting off in verse 1. Jesus knew that his hour was come, that he should depart out of this world unto the Father. Having loved his own, which were in the world, he loved them to the end. Jesus loved his disciples and his followers so much that he gave his only life on the cross. He was willing to give the thing that was the most precious thing to himself, his own body, and he placed it on a tree to pay off the sin for the entire world for whoever might believe in him. And in verse 2 it says this: And supper being ended, the devil, having now put into the heart of Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, to betray him. The devil had placed into Judas's heart to go and betray Jesus Christ. And what I find interesting about this is that Judas was a follower of Jesus, and I believe, like Martha, he had instruction from Jesus. He knew about the last day. He knew about the resurrection of the dead. I believe he knew about the judgment to come. And yet, Satan was able to put in his heart to betray Jesus. And we must all take something from that. You know, it's possible for us to be affected by evil spiritual forces as a Christian. They can place things into our head to discourage us, to make us go down the wrong path, to go towards sin. But they can lead us into temptation. And the Lord's Prayer is that we are led from temptation. So anything that takes us from temptation is from the Spirit of God. But I believe that anything that takes us to temptation is from the evil one. But it is also from ourselves. We're told in Scripture that we're not to struggle with the flesh, but we're to struggle with evil spiritual forces. So we can pray for them, to be not affected by them, and to continue in the path of righteousness that has been laid out. Now in the church there are many people, but some people can be affected in the church from evil spiritual forces, just as we see here Judas Iscariot. And it's important for us to be aware of that, and to not trust in man, but to trust in God, and to help these people through prayer and petition to God. But we're still called to love everyone in the church, you know, not to treat them horribly. For Jesus himself, he loved them unto the end, and I believe he loved Judas Iscariot. You know, he gave them every chance, but even Jesus could not save him, and the scripture needed to be fulfilled. Now it says in verse 13, You call me Master and Lord, and you say, Well, for so I am. If I then, your Lord and Master, have washed your feet, ye ought to wash one another's feet. For I have given you an example, that ye should do as I have done. Jesus washed his other disciples' feet. The disciples didn't say to Jesus, Jesus, wash our feet. But Jesus took the initiative and washed the disciples' feet. He served the others. Now in our Christian walk, we're called to serve others. We're called to wash other people's feet within the church, to serve them. And it's really important for us to realise that Jesus, God manifested in the flesh, not only did he humiliate himself to die on a cross, but he also would humble himself to the point of washing the disciples' feet. And we have to do the same within our church life. We should be willing to serve other people, whether it's making them a cup of tea, washing their cups. You know, we take the initiative and we move out. But we're not to go around start telling people and other Christians we want them to serve us. No, they need to take the initiative themselves. It's okay to ask for help, but it's another thing to expect service. You know, we have to be dependent on God, and it's okay to ask for help, but we shouldn't expect people to deal with our commands, which sometimes happens within the church. We should be humble and want to serve others as a priority. In verse 16, Jesus says, "Verily, verily, I say unto you, the servant is not greater than his Lord, neither he that is sent greater than he that sent him." What's interesting about this is that in verse 14, verse 28, it says this, "If you love me, you would rejoice, because I said, I go unto the Father, for my Father is greater than I." The Father is greater than the Son. Some people say that they're all equal, but Jesus says here that the Father is greater than the Son. And the Father sent the Son. And in the verse that I previously read, he said this, "Verily, verily, I say unto you, the servant is not greater than his Lord, neither he that is sent greater than he that sent him." So the Lord God sent Jesus Christ, the Father sent Jesus Christ, his Son. So the Father is greater than his Son. And his Son sends all of the disciples of him to go out and proclaim the good news and to follow his commandments. So Jesus is greater than us, and yet he still humbled himself to wash the other people's feet. And I think this is really a great lesson for us, that we should do the same, and to recognize who we are. The Son and the Father is better than us, for they sent us. We're a slave to them in some respects, although we have been set free, and we're to serve others. He says that if you know these things, happy are you if you do them. So it's good, and it makes us happy to serve others. In verse 20, Jesus says, "Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that receiveth whomever I send receiveth me, and he that receiveth me receiveth him that sent me." Jesus had this problem that people were rejecting him, and what was actually happening was that they were rejecting the Father. Because if they knew Jesus, they would come to know the Father. And really what Jesus is saying is that if people reject you personally as a disciple, they're rejecting Jesus. And if they reject Jesus, in turn they're rejecting the Father. So when we go out witnessing, and we're humble, and we're also like shrewd as vipers, but innocent as doves, when we witness to people and they reject us, they're not rejecting you personally, but they're rejecting the one that sent you. And there's huge ramifications for that. But we need to rest in the fact that they don't reject us personally, they reject him, which in my opinion is far worse. In verse 34 it says this, Jesus speaking, "A new commandment I give unto you, that ye love one another as I have loved you, that ye also love one another. By this shall all men know that you are my disciples, if you have love one to another." When people come into the church and they see that there's an atmosphere of love, and that everybody enjoys the company of all the other disciples in there, they recognize that there's a good thing to be found in the church. It's so important that we have love for each other. But this whole chapter gives us this dilemma, that some people may not necessarily be willing to serve. Some people may be unhappy in not doing that. Some people may be affected by evil spirits within the church, and that may lead to backbiting and people spreading gossip and rumours about other people. And we're to live in this environment. Judas Iscariot had the best teacher of all, and yet he still rejected. I don't think he rejected Jesus. I think that he betrayed him. And people will betray us, as Christians within the church, because there are snakes in our midst, and it's not that we're to, we could identify them. The thing is that we do our best in the situation that we're given, and we also need to realise that God knows our own personal heart, He knows who we are, and we should love all of the disciples as much as possible. You know, it's really important, and to serve them and to take the initiative and to go out and proclaim the gospel. So I suppose what this video is getting at is that when you live for Christ, you're going to come across problems within the church and disciples. You're going to come across the situation that we should be serving each other, we should be loving each other. That doesn't happen. And your job in all of that is to love everybody and to serve everybody and to walk humbly with your God.